little yeah. We're going to have a little talk today about ignite your potential. And this has come across because a lot of people that I meet, they come to me and they share with me that they do so much work, and yet they are still moving around in the same issues year after year or month after month. Or they experience that they go into a training and they feel like, wow, things changed and it really got good. And then it's just a question of time. And then after that time, they feel that everything goes back to what it was. And so we're going to talk a little about today, what is it that happens? So first of all, you might be here because your personal growth work doesn't go as fast as you like. Maybe you are here because you've experienced participating in events and workshops, and the positive changes from those retreats, they do not stick. They don't stay with you. Maybe they stay for a period. Maybe that period is long, but then you experience eventually that your old patterns starts kicking back in. And it can also be that you are very aware of what's going on and you fully understand what's going on in you, but you still cannot change behaviors and patterns that are running how you are reacting in the world, how you might either be responding and reacting to others or how you deal with certain situations. So one of the things that most of the people I come across they are doing is that they are focusing on process work. And it's all they do. And they do a lot of it. And they are amazing at doing process work. But the problem is that process work is one leg on a body that actually holds two legs. So because some of the things I want to speak into today can be a little complex to listen to if you don't have any visuals, I've made a little bit of a PowerPoint. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can watch a little bit while I speak. Just give me a moment. Oops, that was not the right one. I'm just going to stop sharing and then I need to go back. Just give me a second here. Yeah. I'm not so good at this stuff here. But eventually, yes, it looks like it's working. So what we'll be doing is that we'll talk a little into these two legs. So I see that it's the images of everybody is sort of in the way. If you cannot see the text in your upper right corner on your own Zoom, you can minimize the drop downs of faces. And when it comes to personal growth, there are two legs that we need to stand on. And the question is, have you been developing both of them? Or have you simply just been focusing on the one that has to do with inner process? This is the one where we go into emotions, releasing, movement, getting to understand stories, knowledge, and so on, where we go back and we revisit things that were stuck in our system. And it is important to do that work. But the problem is, if we only do that work, eventually we're going to be a very strong one-legged person that can jump around, but we don't have the inner balance. And there will be some processes within you that will happen because there is a two-legged process that your system is needing for you to actually be able to have control over what's going on. So the first leg, leg A, is the process leg. This is the leg I say that most of the people I meet, they are very good in this one. And it's also the leg where we start. This is typically where we notice something is wrong in our life, or we notice that there are things we want to change. There's something that doesn't feel the way it should be. and we start to investigate and we start diving into what is this. Maybe we have a cognitive, a cognitive understanding that something is going on. Maybe we just have body experiences. Something is happening. And then we start diving into what is this that is happening in my body. And a big amount of the retreats and trainings I give focus on clearing this leg. So I am not saying it's not important, it is. But we also need to attend to leg B. And the leg B is the leg which deals with awareness and presence. It's the one which has the consciousness. And these two legs are very important to have equally solid. If you meet someone where you're like, wow, this is such a grounded person, this is someone where even when it feels like they're in the storm of, in the eye of the storm, and even if lots of things is happening in their life, and things are happening around them, they're just really solid and steady and rock fast. These are people that has developed both legs, so that even when life do get challenging, when things comes to them that normally might overwhelm someone, it doesn't overwhelm them. So the growth and growing has two sides, just like a coin. And it's important to not just polish one of the sides. You already know the one side, which is representing also the one leg. And this is where we work with the processes, and the processes will release stuck energy. This is the body memory that can affect your body to keep responding in different ways. So this leg is very important to work on, or this side of the coin is very important to work on. When you go through these processes, you might have insights coming up. There's a bigger understanding happening of what's going on. And you might even get to also get knowledge about the why. When we work just merely through the process, through the body, it's not always that we figure out what the why is. And from a body perspective, that is often not needed. However, for all of that knowledge, all of these insights, to be able to make a change in your daily life, it is your presence and your awareness to your moment-to-moment life that is needed. Because it is that presence and awareness that allows you to make different choices to a well-known situation that normally would bring you somewhere else, or bring you into a pattern that keep repeating itself. Repetitive pattern and behavior pattern, they happen due to something called the amygdala hijacking, which is the amygdala hijacking your brain functions. So the amygdala is part of the limbic system. And the brain functions I'm referring to is the neocortex. When the amygdala hijacks you, what happens is that it reduces your capacity to act and respond to a situation according to how you want to, and it makes you merely just react upon old memories that you're typically not even aware of right now, and old patterns and response cycles that is almost trained into your cellular level, and your body can always go to that. If you wish to stop the amygdala hijacking from happening, you need an awakened observer present at all times. If that doesn't happen, then you'll be driven around by chance and out of circumstances. And that is because of what the amygdala will do when it hijacks you. Because what the amygdala does at that time is that it jumps to conclusions. And it will trigger reactions before any full or even any confirmation of the actual situation has been obtained. What you can look at is that the amygdala, once it's activated and triggered, actually responds like, if there is a one fact equals all. And that means that you just have to have one key point in a situation that reminds your amygdala about something. And then it will decide that right now, this is what is going on, even if that is not the case. But the amygdala will not give enough time to gather all the evidence, all the information to really be capable of assessing the actual situation. So when we talk about being embodied and embodiment, then we have these two legs. So again, you have the process legs and you have the awareness leg. And there are some very distinct differences, because when people are in process leg, here what happens is there's typically strong intensities happening. There's strong emotions. It's an act of doing. It's a place of where we're doing something. We are reacting in this area. We are reacting with body memory of old things. Maybe the reaction is unfinished cycles that are needed to do, but it is still a reaction. It is not a conscious choice at that moment. It is also in this leg where there will be a lot of arousal present. When you go into process, you have arousal in your system. And when there's arousal, that is due to an activation of stress hormones. And the stress hormones, when they are worked through, what they give you is a sense of relief after the process. And typically we can end up thinking like, wow, I released my trauma because I feel so good and so relaxed now. But in reality, you were just building up a really high level of stress hormones. And then through the process, you release those stress hormones. After that, you might have the experience of, wow, it feels like everything is released. And sometimes it is, sometimes it is not, especially if you've been going into what is known as catharsis, which is very extreme expressions of yelling, screaming, kicking, moving. Many times the catharsis expression do not have a real release in it, meaning it's actually not removing your original trauma. It is just giving you such a high activation of stress hormones. And once you release those, you will feel really relaxed afterwards. And this happens due to hormonal changes that happens internally once those hormones are burned off. When we go to the awareness level, however, here it's a very different space. This is a space where it's about slowness instead of strong intensity. It's about inner silence or silence instead of strong emotions. It's about being instead of doing. It is where you're observing instead of reacting. And it's a neutral observer, meaning that you observe it, but you don't get overwhelmed and flushed by it. And where there is arousal in the process leg, here there's calmness. There's no activation of stress hormones. Where in the other process leg, you will have often this feeling of relief, maybe of tiredness. You will in the other leg not have any change of inner state. And actually, if you do have a change in inner state here, you will often feel expanded and relaxed. So quite different, where you're not relaxed from a depleted, tired place. You can be relaxed from an empowered, expanded state. So if we look at the two-sided coin, again, you have the process versus the silence, but there's something else also about it. The process belongs to the 3D world. Whereas when we are in the awareness and presence, we are actually moving inside the quantum field. And what is the big difference of that is that in the 3D world, there is only one reality. It can have different perspectives because you perceive it in different ways depending on what lenses you see it through, but it typically has more or less one outcome. When you can view a situation from the quantum field, however, you have all possibilities available and you have the capacity to find a situation which is the best for you at this point. So when we work on the inner silence, for instance, that is one of the things where meditation is a super good thing. Focus and focusing is a very important thing. And that can be a focus thing when you are in silence, when you are in quiet space. If people do Vipassana meditation, for instance, those are perfect trainings for this, because you just have to sit and observe, and you just have to sit and be. And in Vipassana, even if your body is painful, you're told, don't move, just observe it, just sit and be with it. But it can also be that you are looking for, how can I find silence within chaos? So where you actually search for the silence when it is not calm. Again, you can take the example. Imagine that you know you're really good at doing meditation. You're really good at doing Vipassana. Now try to go to a central station and sit down and then do your Vipassana there, with people walking around you, passing by you, and see, can you actually still find that inner silence when there's movement around you? Or can you only do that when you have set up a space that is super, super quiet, and where you have decided what type of space do I need for me to actually be able to have my inner silence? So when we talk about working on the presence and the awareness and the inner silence, what we want to develop is a capacity to have that even when there's movement around us, even when there's chaos around us. If you like to do movement and you, for instance, want to again practice, can I practice a still point? Sufi whirling, super, super good as well. Lots of movement, but you're supposed to end up coming in an inner state of quiet, inner state of stillness, despite your whole body circling and moving at all times. Controlling our impulses is another way, because when we are not in silence and when we're not in the aware and present leg, we are typically in the process leg, where there's action happening at all times. And here we will often be reacting to impulses. That can be impulses of something we need, but it can also just be desires. Whereas if we want to practice getting more calmness, getting more present within ourselves, then what you can do is that you can try to delay your gratification. So if there's something you really want to, really, really want it, okay, that's great. But you can have it in a week from now, or you can have it in 2 days from now, where you basically, again, train that container to not be immediately fed. And you can do your best to also work on controlling your impulses. One of the easiest way to control impulses is in terms of wanting to respond to someone. Count to 3 before you answer, or count to 5. You delay the answer. The same can be for an emotional response you want to throw back at someone. Count to 3 or 5 before you actually do it, and see how that might affect you, what changes. So I'd like to come a little back to the hijacking of the amygdala and explain a little, why is it that we can have knowledge and awareness and we've gone so much a process and we still get hijacked? What is it that actually happens? So the amygdala is part of your limbic system. And with this part of your system, you also have your, just a minute. You also have your hippocampus, and you also have where the big difference between your hippocampus and your amygdala is that your amygdala, first of all, works by association. And your amygdala is the one that is controlling and receiving your emotional states. That is our emotional memory bank. And it reacts and responds to high emotions or strong emotions. The amygdala is also where you will experience what you could call your inner radar. Comes from your amygdala. That is the part that constantly checks, is everything okay? Am I happy here? Am I safe? Is this situation good enough? Is there something that shouldn't be the way it is? And your amygdala will be getting sensory signals that comes from your body. So your body and your entire nerve system will always be sending you information about what is going on in your around you. And you have this scanning of the environment at all times. So your body is constantly receiving sensory signals. And the ones that comes from, for instance, your eyes and your ears, they travel first to your thalamus, which is also in your limbic system. And from there, things that you have heard or things you've seen can actually cross just one single synapse. And that is very, very little. From your thalamus straight into your amygdala. And your amygdala, if it's getting a strong signal, that then by association reminds the amygdala of something it experienced in the past. And it only needs one key opponent from a bad experience in the past to say this is the same. Then the amygdala immediately jumps up and puts out all the defense systems. And what it will do is it will start sending loads of hormones left and right to your body, activating your arms and your legs. Maybe you need to fight. Maybe you need to run. It will increase your heart rate. It will make you more aware of your senses. So it is sending a lot of messages out to the body. And what the amygdala does is it is getting this information before the thalamus is sending even more information. All the sensory information is being sent to your neocortex. That's your thinking brain. But the process from the thalamus to the neocortex with all the information is slow. Whereas the information through the eyes and the ears that goes straight from your thalamus straight into your amygdala is the instant of a moment. And if that is such a strong imprint that it activates the inner guard saying danger, danger, basically it's a big red alert that comes on the body, then what your amygdala has the capacity to do is shut down your frontal lobe. And your frontal lobe is your thinking mind. That is the part of you that can rationalize. That's the part of you that can say, hey, maybe it's not so bad. But that part already now do not function. And this is amazing in some situations. Like it's amazing if you imagine you're walking, you're a bit in your own mind, and you're about to cross a street and there's lots of traffic and you're not really noticing, you're not really following, and you step one step out on the road. Your eyes and your ears have already gotten that signal with one synapse jump telling your amygdala, danger, she's gonna get hit by a car or he. And what happens is that the body will immediately do the reaction to save you. So you might experience that you took a step out on the road and suddenly you're back on the curve and you're like, how did I even get here? Because your thinking brain did not do it. Because if it had, all those information had to go from your thalamus through the normal route into your neocortex, that would have taken a lot of time and you would have been hit by that car 10 times over already and you would be dead. Because your thinking brain would have been like, oh, I'm getting a lot of information that actually right now I shouldn't be stepping out on the road because there's a car coming and the mass of the car is bigger than me, and when it hits me, the impact will be really bad for me, and I'll be thrown in. It will go through this rational way of thinking. Is this a good or bad idea? Maybe I should do something, but should I go forward or go backward? That would be the normal part of your brain. Whereas the amygdala, which is our fight flight instincts, it just does what is needed to do. But the amygdala gets activated every time something comes through our eyes and ears and reactivates a memory that was a strong memory. When we in the past had experiences where there was strong emotions involved, whether those are positive emotions or negative emotions, doesn't matter. But since the amygdala is also our memory bank that stores our emotional memory, if something strong emotionally happened, let's say it's a trauma situation, it's unwanted, what happens is that all these hormones that the body sent out to warn the body to get it to react is actually coming back via your vagus nerve, back into your amygdala, making sure that this specific memory gets enlarged, gets made many times stronger in your memory bank. So in the future, if your amygdala gets triggered by something and it makes a correlation, it makes an association to one of these old strong memories, then it immediately says, one item equals all items, it is, and then it goes into full defense. So when we do, for instance, body work, or we do emotional work, or we do process work, what we do is that we are working on releasing the energy in the body, and that's amazing. But often we don't manage to release all the levels because many times we will be doing layer by layer by layer release of trauma or bad experiences. Sorry, just a moment. And when we then haven't released everything, then this thing can keep happening, even if we, when we are not in the triggered state, have an understanding of what is going on. But because these things are on autopilot, they are happening outside of your thinking brain. They are happening because of neurochemistry and because of sensory inputs. So once your thinking brain has been eliminated, then when we're hijacked, it takes its turn. And some hijacking only takes, a few seconds, a few minutes, but other hijackings can take minutes, hours, days, weeks, and for some people, even years, where they cannot get out of that state. It has to run its course. And then once it ran its course and we're sort of back in our normal situation, which means that now the entire brain opens up with all the functionality of the brain. This is where we often think, oh, maybe I overreacted a bit. Many times when you have fights between couples, they are both hijacked by the amygdala. They are not having full access to their thinking brain, and therefore they cannot make very good rational decisions. And they are often overreacting to the situation, meaning that, that the reactions that are coming up are way too strong compared to what was actually going on. And it's not until we're out of the situation that we can see that. Because while we're in the situation, remember, it's a memory that's triggered, and that memory has already says, one equals all. This is what's going on. So if you, for instance, have an emotional response that doesn't match with what has been done or said, you are having an act of your emotional mind, meaning your limbic system. Or you can also have an act of your rational mind. But typically, it is the emotional mind that comes in, especially when we experience that our personal growth doesn't take us where we really want to go. Then what it normally means is that your leg with awareness and presence consciousness, basically, and inner stillness, that leg is underdeveloped. So when we want to develop it, there's a lot here that has to do with consciousness practice, awareness practice, and presence practice, but also boundary practice. Because your boundary sense and your boundary practice is what helps you realize when you're starting to get too close to these fences that can take you somewhere else. And we want to come into a situation where we can catch ourselves before we're hijacked. Because the normal state of a situation is that even if we're triggered, we want to be able to have the trigger happen without it getting so strong that it overwhelms our system and therefore shuts down our neocortex. Because in the neocortex, here you have access to all the sensory systems and inputs that were sent to you. Here you have access to your rational mind, to your knowledge, to your wisdom, to past experiences. Here you get a broad access to many things, so you can create a more complete picture of what's going on. And you'll be able to, when your amygdala is co-creating with your neocortex, in this state here, you can then make sure that you choose an action or a response that actually comes from a place of, oh, this is the right thing for me to do right now. I'm not just responding and reacting to I'm not just reacting to a situation. And what you will find is that your actions will start to become more aligned with who you are. So you will start feeling like, wow, what I'm doing is actually, aligned with my personal values. It's aligned with my ethics. It's aligned with my moral, but also it will be aligned with the plan you actually made for yourself and set out for your future. Whereas when we get hijacked by the amygdala, then the actions we do are rarely the ones that are taking us forward towards that direction we're aiming for. Many times when we get hijacked, we will get, oh, I'm so stupid, and this self-critical and self-negative voice starts coming on. But it's important to know that if the inner patience and silence and compassion, that side of you has not been developed and trained enough, then you have nothing or not something that is strong enough to actually counteract the impact of a very strong emotional response. And then it is not a choice when we get hijacked. It will happen whether we want it or not. And that's why one of the things we want to do is to look at, okay, how can we do these things? So there's many different practices we can do. Right now, I'd like you to do a little practice with me. One of the things that is important is to make unconscious emotions conscious. An unconscious emotion is an emotion that is beneath your awareness. And it's one that has a powerful impact on how we perceive the world and how we end up acting, basically reacting. And we might not even be aware in our actions that they are driven by an unconscious emotion, because it's so below our radar that we don't even know the driving force right now inside of me was an emotion. When an emotion becomes conscious, it means that that is the moment when this emotion has been registered in your frontal cortex, meaning you now have awareness. And many times the things that are running us, also when we do process work, a lot of the things that activates in a process is still unconscious emotions. where we don't know what's happening. We just feel the impact of it. So first, I'd like you to just start by closing your eyes for a moment. And I'm just going to switch view so I can see you, and it's easier to guide. So close your eyes for a moment and just take a moment to breathe into your heart. And just feel where it is. And just feel, what does it feel like in my heart today? Now take a deep breath and exhale. Now I want you to remember and think back to a time when you felt really safe and very respected. And it can be something that happened recently, a long time ago. It doesn't matter. It's just important that this is a memory where there I really felt safe and good, or maybe I felt respected by someone. And then notice, what does your body feel like? How does it feel in your heart? How does it feel to breathe? Now, this sensation you have right now, this is body language for this is good. Now, one more time, take a deep breath and just feel your heart again. And now I want you to remember back to a time where someone crossed your boundaries in a big way. It was totally over the line and unacceptable. And it did not make you happy. So remember that situation, whether it's long ago or recently. And how does it feel in your heart right now, thinking about this? Somebody's crossing your boundaries, disrespecting you. How does it feel in your heart? How's your breath? Now, this is body language for this is not good. This feels bad. Maybe it even feels dangerous. Now let go of the memory. Maybe shake your shoulders, your body a little bit if you need to. Get that one out of your system. And then take another deep breath. Still with your eyes closed, breathe again. Now I want you to remember a situation where someone disrespected you just on a minor level. Maybe they didn't come as agreed. Maybe they came late and you were standing there in a corner waiting for a long time. Or maybe they didn't even bother to let you know. How does this feel in your body? How does this feel in your heart? What does it do to your breath? Now, this is your body language for quiet or displeasure. Now go back one more time and take a deep breath. And remember something that was really funny. Made you laugh. that made you feel really happy. And again, feel your body. Notice your heart and your breath. So again, this is body language for this is good. And this is body language also for this is nurturing. This is supportive. And then you can open your eyes and come back in the space. So to move forward into developing these sites, it's about also building nervous system resilience. So working with the vagus nerve, moving yourself from sympathicus to parasympathicus type of nervous system is very good to also work with, to learn the differences, to learn what it feels like in the body. Because when you want to be able to stop yourself from having programs take over, patterns repeat itself, we need to learn to be able to be so silent inside that we can hear subtleties. Because the warning of it's going to happen happens in a short microsecond before it happens. And this is your window of opening. This is the window where if you can catch it there, you can transverse it to move into the normal pattern of still having access to your thinking brain. So if you're someone who experiences regularly that your system gets overwhelmed and you notice that it's hard to be in a relaxed nervous system, giveaways on this can be that you're always moving your body. You can't sit still. And you might not feel that, oh, but it's something I have to do. But if you just notice I'm someone who's always, maybe your feet are going, then your nervous system is not relaxed. Maybe you're someone who has a hard time falling asleep. Then your nervous system is not relaxed. Maybe you're someone who's having a hard time staying asleep at night. Then your nervous system is not relaxed either. So I'd like to take you through just a really, really simple little process of putting your nervous system into parasympathicus and to balance it. And it's a very simple practice of the vagus nerve. And it's a practice that I give to a lot of my clients to help them create resilience. It's a practice that if you do it daily and preferably between 3 and 5 times a day, it will very fast end up having big impact on your resilience and how, let's say, how broad your inner container starts becoming before your nervous system is moved over. So what you do is you interlock your hands and then you put them behind your head. So right where your skull comes into your neck, this is where you want the lower part of your hands to touch. And then you have your head, you have a little pressure on it without falling forward, but you have a little bit of pressure. And what you want to make sure now is that you don't end up turning your head. That's actually the purpose of the hands, is to keep you here so that you will stay with your head looking straight forward. So see if you can place your elbows in the way where if you move your eyes to the side without moving your head. Okay, you probably need to see me. There. So you should be able to see the tip of your elbow. If you can't see them, then just move them slightly further forward so that you can use. And what we do is that we're going to keep the head straight forward, holding the head with the hands, and then you move your eyes to the left. And you look as far to the left as you can. See if you can see that elbow tip. And if you're too far here out with your in front of you and it's too easy, you move your elbow so far out that it's a bit strangeness in the eyes, but not painful. And you see if you can keep focusing on the elbow, not moving your head. And what you want to notice now is if you will have a sigh come on, maybe your body will sigh, or you swallow, or you yawn. And you'll stay in this position until you have done one of the three things. And this will take anywhere between seconds up to max 5 minutes. With most people, it happens within the first 2 minutes. So I've already been doing a swallow, actually twice. But some of you will yawn, some of you will just have a sigh like that. Then you move your eyes and look on the right elbow tip. And you look as far as you can. And keep the focus, still holding your head straight. So I had a yawn this time. And that basically means for me that I've done it. And I'm done and I can take my arms down. But like I said, this will max take 10 minutes. And for most of us, it takes anywhere between 2, 3, 4 minutes to have done both sides. What happens when we do this is that we are using physiology to get the vagus nerve to actually shift your nervous system from your sympathicus into your parasympathicus. The more often your nervous system is trained to do that shift, the stronger it will get into actually doing the shift, and the better it will be at staying there. So if you're someone who has a nervous system that easily gets overwhelmed, I will strongly encourage you to do this between 3 and 5 times a day. Do it when you wake up so that you start the day with a relaxed way, and do it when you lie down in your bed. You can do this lying down as well. Do it when you lie down in your bed to sleep, because to be able to fall asleep, you have to have your nervous system in the parasympathicus part of the nervous system. If you are staying in sympathicus, you won't be sleeping. So it's always a good one to simply do just before sleeping, because then you can have a deeper rest. And even if you then are someone who still wakes up in the middle of the night, do it again. Keep helping your nervous system switching in, because the beauty of this practice is that we're using the body's natural built-in instincts and capacities to do it. We don't have to think our way to do it. We don't have to train ourselves mentally to do it, because this is simply just an autopilot that when you do this with the body, it will automatically do that. Okay. So let me just see. Other ways to work with increasing that inner container is to work with sound and frequencies, because sound and frequencies can induce specific states in your nervous system that supports the nervous system in having more resilience and coming back to a center of relaxed state. And you can use specific frequencies to actually deliberately get your nervous system into different types of, let's call it, strengths. Another way is to use sound, and that can be your self-sounding, that can be humming, that can be mantras. There's a good reason why mantras was invented and why they are so powerful. First of all, the words of the mantras has energy. So each of the Sanskrit words holds a frequency. So just the pronunciation of the word already induces frequencies, but the sound of the tones also do that. So sound can also support. And a last one that is good for the inner silence is also to training the resilience within ourselves of motivation. So when we're someone who likes to procrastinate, sometimes I'm guilty of that one, that's a perfect place to train the motivation to get myself to do what I'm supposed to do, or what I had planned to do, or what I need to do. And it can also be a motivation in terms of be persistent when you are frustrated with something instead of giving up. And be persistent when you're doing something and you're still not done, but you're starting to get bored and now you want to stop. Because every time we keep ourselves in these practices where we don't allow ourselves to move out of them, this is where we expand our container. Because basically, when you're bored, when you're frustrated, that's you having an inner container that cannot hold the discomfort of that state you're in right now. So the more we can push the boundaries of that state, the more we can actually be in a state within ourselves of peace, of quiet, even if things around us are not optimal. And here is where the sound, for instance, and the vibration of sound also supports expanding the container. And breath. And when we talk about breath as a support here, I'm not talking about the typical shamanic type of breath work where you are hyperventilating. I'm talking about the type of, and where the purpose is to go into, again, the process leg of emotional release. I'm talking about breath work where you train to increase your capacity for holding higher levels of CO2 inside of your body. Because when you can hold higher CO2 levels inside your body, that creates the resilience that minimizes how easily your body also will get hijacked. So from here, I'd like to just very shortly move into sharing a little bit about what we will be doing also going forward within the Gaia method, which is that at the end of August, 29th of August, we will be having 5 nights, 6 days more or less, where we actually go into a retreat called Embody Yourself. And this is a retreat that I created some years ago because I kept seeing how people were doing process work, and lots of catharsis work, but they didn't get the actual benefit from all the work they were doing because they were lacking that second leg. They were lacking the inner container and the silence, the presence and awareness. So that training is one where we really focus on how can we build and create that bigger container so that even if you are in the center of the storm, in the eye of the storm, you'll be able to feel calm even when chaos moves around you. But also that we will look into all these different types of tools that can be used to support inner silence, more listening, more patience, more compassion, because these comes from this leg. They do not belong in the process leg. The high level of patience and compassion belongs to the presence and awareness leg. So also when we want to have more self-love, more compassion, and more presence with ourselves, it is this leg that needs more building. Then later, end of September, on the 27th of September, we will be doing sexual healing and de-armoring, where we focus on genital work. And this is the workshop where we will have equal gender, and then female and male will work on opposite genitals with each other. And there will be more than genital work here. There will be all sorts of work that has an impact on sexuality. And again, when we choose to offer sexual work, it's again because this is blockages that are linked to our root, to our lower chakras. And often these are where the blocks within our system are, that goes far back in our system, and the ones that often have a deeper impact on almost cellular level, because it's almost been with us so long that this is who I am, or at least that's how it can feel, because sometimes we don't even recall having felt different ever, because it happened with changes in this region of our body when we were so small. And if you have done our fundamental practitioner level, then at 9th of October for 8 days, I will be offering an advanced level where I will teach how to do a full flow of a session. Because in the fundamental practitioner level, here I teach you all the bits and pieces, but I don't teach you how to put it together yet, because you need first to really dive into all the pieces. There will be extra things coming up in that training as well that has not been taught at the foundational level, which are part of the process. And the process to give is a process that really supports when you have someone where you want to do what I call the big grand tour, to figure out how many places in the body is there something we need to work with. It can also be something if you have someone coming and they don't really know what's going on in their body, they just know they're not happy in life. That can be very difficult to know, okay, so how and where do I start my body work? Here is where the full flow is really good, because it takes you through everything. So in all of these 3 events, there is still space. And for those of you that are here in this presentation right now, if you are curious about diving into really working on this second leg, we are offering a €300 discount for those of you that are present right now. And what I want you to do is I want you to add if you choose to register, then you will have a coupon that you can put in, and I want you to put in Masterclass in that coupon. And if you do that, then we will allow you to come in for €300 discount, and the discount ends by the end of this week. And if there's any questions, then we have a little bit of time for some Q&A. I can see that the hour is up, so if someone just needs to and want to move on, then I fully respect and understand that. And if there's anyone that would like to have some questions and answers, then I'm also completely open to give some answers to that. So I think, Naomi, you've been watching the chat. If there's been anything, maybe you can sound
Nothing
yourself.
so far, but I actually have a question, Suze, if I may.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, you said it's important to have an awakened observer present to stop that hijacking from happening. Is it possible that awakened observer is overactive and actually does its job too well?
No, because you're talking about a controller.
Okay.
I'm talking about a neutral observer. And a neutral observer doesn't get hijacked and doesn't get, what this, it just observes everything. So the more your observer is present, the more you will experience that you get much more details. You have much more information to choose the right action based on. But when you feel like it's overactive, then it's an inner controller and not an inner observer. But inner controllers, when we start working with them, are master disguisers, meaning that they can start to downtone themselves so that you can have a feeling that, oh, but it's just an observer. So it's very much about where's the energy coming from, because the observer is just noticing, but it doesn't even judge good or bad. It's very factual. Oh, this is happening. Okay, if we keep doing this, that's going to end up bad, but no emotions about it. Just, that's not a good idea. Oh, if we do that, that seems to be a better outcome. That's why I wrote that it's a neutral. It is not one that feels emotional. It's very factual and very rational to some degree. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. There is a question about other training. So is there going to be an embody yourself later? Is there going to be a fundamental practitioner training later this year?
So there will not be any fundamental practitioner later this year. Because we have now started adding advanced levels, there will only be one practitioner, fundamental practitioner level, yearly. And the next fundamental practitioner is actually upgraded to be 12 days long. And that will be from the 20th till the 31st of March. And then I also see Paul Dale is asking 3 signs that you reach the vagus activation. Sighing, swallowing, and yawning is the third one. Regarding embody yourself, there will only be this one this year. And whether or not we will have it next year or jump 2 years, we don't know yet. Last time we had Embody Yourself was 2 years ago. Yeah, the ones that joined that one was really, really happy about what they got out of it. But it is one that, because we have a lot of trainings and a lot of retreats, so it's not been one that I have every year. It is also one that is more special because here I basically focus on teaching all these things you don't see me do in the retreats. But these are the things that I do so that I can be the one that you see when I do my work. Because a lot of you are often asking when you've seen me work, how come you can stay so calm even when the room is chaotic and lots of things is going on and people are in frantic panic and you're just so centered and calm? This is because of the practice I've been doing to develop this second leg for years and years and years. But because it is something where when we want to dive in to really start getting strong here, it needs not just to be, 3 or 5 hours within an entire retreat. It needs to be a focus point of itself to really have value. And that's why we turned it into a retreat where we can dive deep into it. And that also means that the Embody Yourself starts on a Tuesday night, coming together for dinner, and that it ends on a Sunday so that we have time to really go into the different things and also repeat them several times so that there will be a build-up of the practice that we are trying to get across. So you have different things where we'll do a little bit on one day, the next day we add a bit more and a bit more and a bit more so that we also expand that container gradually that way. Yeah.
So Elaine says the Embody Yourself training I found amazing. I did it 2 years ago and it was so powerful. We also have a question. So Olga asked, did I get this right? That in a situation, if I'm reacting, she can use this exercise to keep calm and activate a neutral state.
If she is super triggered and super hijacked, you can be so hijacked that, it's just too late. You can always try and see if it will help you switch. But if your hijacking is super, super strong, then you're on a boat and that boat will sail until it reaches the harbor it intended to come to. And that's why we want to, in general, get better at not getting hijacked, because hijacking typically do not allow us to get off the train until the train stops. It is learning to catch ourselves in those moments, which is a tiny little window just before the hijacking happens. This is what these different practices of creating a bigger inner container helps us do. It helps us recognize what's happening so that we can redirect before we're taken on board this train with no end station. But for many, it will still help them to calm down more. And especially if it's a nervous system activation, then yes, then this will help. But if you're hijacked and your brain is shut down and you're on a train of reactions, then you might have to run the course before you're out. So what Olga is saying, I understand that's a training. Yes, that's a training. I often refer to, if I take some of the things that in my relationship with Adam would create us to get into some conflicts, we would have some specific triggers where, of course, when you're a partner, you always have perfect counter triggers. So you will have one thing that will be the exact counter trigger of your partner, and you will be a perfect match to trigger each other. That's why we come together in partnership, to also solve these things. And in the beginning, when Adam and I was together, we would have some specific issues about miscommunication, not understanding each other, that once we got triggered, we would end up with complete disconnection, like literally, like we were not even relating and not in the same space, even if we were. And it could take us 5 weeks to actually move through it to a way where we could, again, speak deeply from a connected place. Over time, because we both had been working so much on developing this leg, also together, those same situations now takes a minute or two. But it literally in the beginning took between 3 and 5 weeks for us to fully move through this hijacking and come back to full center. So very strong hijacking can take really long before you feel like, oh, now I fully recognize myself again. Yeah. So it is not normal to get, there's a question, I got a headache during the exercise, is that normal? With the vagus nerve, no, it's not normal, but what it can indicate is that that you have a block in your system, and when you then start doing the practice here, then that block got pushed upon and basically highlighted so that you realize, wow, there's something here. But it's not something that I'm used to seeing. Headaches during exercises in general can sometimes indicate that emotions are trying to come to the surface and another part is trying to suppress it. And one of the ways to get us to not go somewhere is when the body gives us pain, because then we move back from it. If you have experienced feeling nauseous when you do it, nausea when you do practices are typically a sign of suppressed emotions being touched upon. If you get irritated in your eyes, then you strained it too far. And that's why I said you want to feel that it's a bit to the edge, but it shouldn't be painful doing it. If it's painful, then you put your elbows further together, so that you still have this feeling I have to look far out, but it should not be painful in your eyes. Huge tiredness that comes again when you move from sympathetic nervous system into parasympathetic. What you will see immediately is if you are exhausted. Because once your body goes into the rest and digest, which is what your parasympathicus part of your nervous system is, and you get a huge tiredness coming on, you're actually being told, hey, you are super tired, you're actually exhausted, and that's what you're feeling. Because you have just activated the part of your body system that can take you into sleep. So basically, if you get super tired, you might have been told by your body, you know what, now we're ready to go and sleep. Maybe you need some sleep, some rest. And then someone got hot flashes during the exercises. Well, I have to say, when it's hot flashes, if it's a woman and it was a female name, I'll always have to say, what age are you? Could you be premenopausal or are you in that age? Because then that can simply just be why you got your hot flash. But if that's not the case, then hot flashes is often a sign that some energy was released. And then you have heat moving through your body. And it could also have been energy that is cold. So you might have had the opposite experience, that you started freezing. Yeah. So someone is saying, where can I research? That is a very big open question, because I would have to know exactly what do you want to research. So I cannot answer to that here. Because what I've been speaking into is many different things at this moment. So the vagus nerve is not named the psoas. The psoas is the muscle that sits and looks like a sail from a sail ship that is attached to your spine, right where your ribs end, and then all the way down to your sacrum. This is where the psoas muscle sits. but the psoas muscle is very connected in reaction to the vagus nerve. So they are often, when you want to affect the vagus nerve, then you often include the psoas, because the psoas will get very affected by the vagus nerve and vice versa. Yeah. So the Embody Yourself is happening 29th of August to 3rd of September, and it's happening in the Netherlands at a venue place called New Eden. So we are in 15 minutes, if you are in the Netherlands, we are 15 minutes away from Heerenveen. Oh. Yes. So if there is no more questions, I think we will say thank you and wish you all a beautiful night. And I hope that I get to see some of you. That would be amazing. Those of you that are practitioners, I already said it in our closed group, but I strongly encourage any practitioner to do the Embody Yourself, because it is really an important basic skill to be able to have that inner stillness and groundedness and presence that doesn't get tired even if a session is long. So a question, if there will be a replay. Yes, anyone that registered for this masterclass will get a replay. We will send a replay out to the emails from everybody that registered, which also means that those that did not have the option to join us tonight, they knew that they would get the replay if they just registered. So thank you to all of you. It's been my pleasure. And I hope that you learned something new or got some insights about yourself.
Thank you very much, Suzanne.